You remember how hard you tried to understand what didn't make sense, how much you tried to explain yourself even without knowing what you were being accused of, how much you swallowed, how much you doubted yourself, how much you stayed silent. And all of this for one single reason. This person needed someone to blame, and they chose you, not out of merit, but out of convenience. Because it was easier to point fingers than to take responsibility, easier to project than to feel, easier to invent guilt outside than to recognize the pain inside. This person didn't want to see themselves. They wanted a target, a distraction, an escape, and they found all of that in you. But now, without you around, without any more excuses, without anyone to challenge, respond to, absorb, or distract, this person begins to realize it wasn't you who caused all that. It wasn't you who exploded, who manipulated, who distorted. You were just in the wrong place, trying to love someone who didn't know what to do with their own truth. And now this person carries the weight that was yours. The weight they placed on your back, on your shoulders, on your conscience. But now there's nowhere left to hide. Because guilt doesn't just evaporate, it accumulates. And when the presence that supported everything disappears, truth emerges. This person may never admit it. They might pretend they forgot. They might even smile and say they've moved on. But you feel it. The guilt is on them now, alone on the inside. And every time your name crosses their mind, they know it wasn't you. If this has happened to you, comment, "I needed to hear this." You were strong enough to not be broken, but you also felt too deeply to come out unscathed. This person used you as a mirror and shattered it because they couldn't stand to see themselves. And now, the reflection remains on them, with no one to erase, distract, or justify. But this isn't over yet. Do you remember the moment you started to wonder if you were doing something wrong? Do you remember the exact feeling of stepping onto a floor that crumbled every time you tried to hold your ground? Do you remember the words that came laden with distortion? And the gaze that seemed to pierce through you as if you were a walking mistake? This person didn't want dialogue, didn't want a solution, didn't want clarity. This person wanted to rid themselves of what they felt and needed a place to throw their own pain without having to confront it. You were that place. You were where this person poured out everything they couldn't process, everything that hurt, everything they couldn't name, and everything they couldn't bear to admit. Because as long as the guilt was yours, this person felt free. Free from responsibility, free from self-reflection, free from the mirror. You became the lightning rod. You became the excuse. You became the perfect projection of what this person didn't want to see. You didn't understand at first, because it didn't make sense. You just wanted to love, help, be present. But every time you tried to get closer, this person reacted as if you were the danger, as if love were a crime, as if embracing were invasive. It was always about you, always you who caused it, always you who hurt, always you who was wrong, even when you were trying to save. And little by little, you began to believe it. You started to carry burdens that weren't yours. You began to shrink in places where you should have expanded. You began to stay silent in situations where you deserved to be heard. But something in you didn't die. Despite the weight, despite the doubt, despite the fear, something in you always knew, even if it was just a voice deep down saying, "There's something wrong here. This isn't yours." That voice grew. It took up space. It began to awaken you slowly, until the moment you decided to leave, decided to stop fighting alone, decided to release what was destroying you, even if it hurt. And that was when everything started to turn around. What was silence within you became noise for those who accused you. What was confusion within you has turned into clarity. What was your burden has returned to its rightful owner. That person was left with the guilt, alone, without an audience, without distractions. And the truth emerged, raw, indigestible, real, she realized. She realized in the silence you left behind. She realized in the nights when there was no one left to argue with. She realized in the memories that resurfaced and had no one to absorb them. This person recognized that you weren't the villain, you were the shield. You were what kept her emotional structure standing. And when you left, the structure collapsed. Now this person feels everything, but can't express it. She feels guilt, feels shame, feels emptiness. Yet she can't find the courage to reach out to you, because now she knows what was said can't be erased, what was done can't be undone, and what was lost can't be returned. She doesn't speak, but she thinks, doesn't write, but she feels, doesn't ask for forgiveness, but carries regret. If this resonates with you, comment, "I needed to hear this." Sometimes, that's all we need to start letting go, to acknowledge that it wasn't us. This person thought she was strong for pushing you away, but now she feels what it's like to be without you, and doesn't know how to return, because now guilt has nowhere to hide. It can't be projected anywhere, there's no you to carry it. She is there, whole, in her chest, in her mind, in her body. This person relives everything, in the places they used to go together, in the objects that still carry your scent, in the phrases you used to say, in the absence that echoes like a scream. But you no longer have to hold on to this pain, because now the pain has returned to its origin. Now this person feels what you felt, without anesthesia, without a shield, without you. You were the relief, the anchor, the surrender, but were mistaken for the cause and discarded like a problem. Now this person knows what she lost, knows what she did, knows she can't return, but she keeps trying to look okay, smiling in public, pretending to have moved on, creating distractions, just to avoid feeling everything that comes to the surface when thinking of you. You became the most unbearable memory, because it carries the truth that she didn't want to face. And that truth burns, because everything you tried to say now screams inside her. Everything you lived now repeats in her mind, and now there's no one left to blame. You left, but you left a mirror. And now, every time this person looks at herself, she sees you, and she realizes everything she didn't want to acknowledge before. She realizes the love she pushed away. She realizes the care she sabotaged. She realizes the reflection. She realizes the emptiness. If this has ever happened to you, share in the comments. Have you ever been the mirror that someone shattered because they couldn't bear to see themselves? And even if that person never says anything, you know, she feels. She misses you. She feels your absence. She feels the guilt. She feels the fall. This person lost someone who just wanted to stay, lost someone who endured it all, and now has to live with what she did. And you? Now is the time to free yourself from this, because the weight that was thrown on you is no longer yours. This pain now belongs to the one who caused it. But this is still not the end. This person lost someone who just wanted to stay, lost someone who endured it all, and now has to live with what she did. But there's one detail that perhaps hasn't been spelled out. This person didn't push you away because she didn't love you. She pushed you away because she didn't know what to do with the love she felt. Because love, when it touches someone who is wounded, becomes a threat. Yes, the problem was never that you loved too much. It was that you loved someone who couldn't even love herself a little. And that put you in a war that wasn't yours. You became the battleground where this person's internal conflicts manifested. You were the place where her rejection, guilt, fear, and lack of control appeared, and for that, you became the target. Unjustly. This person looked at you and saw herself. But since they didn't know how to deal with their own reflection, they started to distort the image. They began to accuse you, invert the statements, manipulate the contexts, reinvent memories. Everything to maintain the illusion that the problem lay outside, that it was you, and you, trying to make things work, ended up becoming the enemy. You let it slide, forgave things that shouldn't have happened, accepted crumbs as if they were love, showed empathy for someone who didn't have it for you, and even so you were the guilty one. But now, that person has to live with what they did, and no matter how much you don't see it, no matter how well they seem to be, there's a part inside them that never returned to its place, a silence that screams, a memory that insists, a regret that can't be named, because that person lost you, and they know it, not due to physical distance, but because now you see. And once you see, you don't go back to the same place. You've realized that it wasn't your responsibility to fix someone who didn't want to look at themselves. You've realized you tried to love someone who confused presence with a threat. You've realized that what you felt wasn't reciprocated. It was used. And now, that person is the one feeling the absence they created. They feel it in their body. They feel it in their chest. They feel it in the little things, in the coffee you used to make, in the phrase you used to say, in the calm you brought, in the care that no one else offers. But that person doesn't know what to do with this absence, because it's a void that can't be filled with excuses. It's a void that demands awareness. And that is still too much for them. So they try to forget. They pretend. They fill their time. They distract themselves with other people. They create new versions of themselves to avoid feeling the one you knew. But none of those versions are real, because everything built on lies eventually collapses. And each time they lay their head on the pillow, they remember you not as the problem, but as the only one who stayed when everything was crumbling, the only one who saw, the only one who loved, without demanding anything beyond reciprocity. And that, it hurts more than she'll admit, because now there's no turning back, and there's no way to undo what's been done. Do you realize this? Do you see how the weight is now on her side, how the anguish is no longer yours? You finally breathe. You sleep in peace. You feel light, because now you understand that the mess wasn't yours. The imbalance wasn't yours. The guilt wasn't yours. That person took all of this, and she'll have to learn to live with the echo of her own choice. If this made you feel something, comment here. I needed to hear this. You have every right to move on, to rebuild yourself, to not want to go back anymore. Even if one day that person tries to reach out to you, even if she asks for forgiveness, even if she acknowledges you're no longer the same, and maybe that's what she fears the most. Because when she realized what she lost, it was already too late. Too late to regain trust, too late to take back the words, too late to go back to the time when you still believed. Now, you believe in yourself, and that's what frightens those who once used you as a mirror. Because there's no more control, there's no more dominance, there's no more you. That person feels it. And she'll keep feeling it, even if you move on, even if you love again, even if you never speak of her again. Because some losses cannot be replaced, and some mistakes cannot be erased. That person will carry this forever. And you have already started to free yourself. Now it's your turn to feel only what belongs to you. Yes, that person will carry what she did. She will feel, she will remember, she will relive. But you also have scars. And there are marks that aren't visible. Marks that hide in forms of behavior, in blocks, in invisible alerts, in nameless fears. Have you noticed how sometimes you hesitate before trusting? How you feel tension in your body when someone praises you too much, gets too close, offers too much? How, without realizing it, you start to protect yourself even from those who haven't given you any reason to? This is not weakness. It's your body trying to save you from what it still doesn't understand has ended. It's the emotional memory still trying to keep you safe. Because when you live with someone who blames you all the time, your system learns that being right is dangerous. That being seen has consequences. That speaking up can turn into a weapon against you. And that makes you walk in silence, with caution, with breaks. You start to control your own presence, as if you exist too much, as if you're a bother just by being. That person may be gone, but inside their voice still echoes, and now begins your hardest part. Recognizing what remained. It's not about them blaming you, it's about you having started to blame yourself too. Unknowingly, you swallowed the narrative. You incorporated the distortion. You began to doubt your own perception, your own worth, your own truth. And that might still be there. But now it's time to undo this, to return what isn't yours, to reclaim your voice, your presence, your peace. Not for them, but for you. You are not what that person said you never were. You are what stood tall, even after being treated like a mistake. You are what still loves, even after being hurt by those who should have cared. You are what keeps going, and even after being left behind, and that is strength, is courage, is dignity. There's nothing wrong with you. Wrong was being confused with the reflection of someone's traumas. Wrong was having to carry the weight of someone who never had the courage to look in the mirror. Wrong was having to explain your essence to someone who only wanted to mold you to fit their own pain. You weren't seen, you were used, you weren't embraced, you were projected upon. And yet, you remained. You tried. You believed. You fought. And because of that now, you can choose to stop. You can choose yourself. You can say, enough, I won't accept this role anymore. If this resonated with you so far, write in the comments, this part was mine. Because yes, this part is yours, it's about you. That person is left with the guilt. But now it's you who needs to embrace freedom. And freedom doesn't come with forgetting, it comes with clarity. It comes at the moment you realize that everything they tried to distort dissolves when you reconnect with what you knew all along. You were never the problem, but it doesn't stop here, doesn't? There's something that no one has told you yet. about what happens to those who project blame onto others and then realize, too late, what they have lost. If this resonated with you, leave a comment, drop a like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one.